Good morning. Good morning. I now note that the hour has come. Clerk, will you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate that you are present when your name is called.
Councilmember Bass.
Present.
Councilmember Phillips.
Present.
Councilmember Landau.
Present.
Chair Gilmore Richardson.
Present. Thank you. A quorum of the Committee on Law and Government is present, and this hearing is now called to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee on Law and Government regarding resolution numbers 240030 and 240068 and bill numbers 240004, 240005, and 240061. Clerk, will you please read the title of the bills and resolutions?
Bill number 240004, an ordinance amending Title 11 entitled Streets and Title 21 Miscellaneous of the Philadelphia Code to amend requirements concerning publication of notices in newspapers, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 240005, an ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to create the Office of Homeless Services Ombudsperson as set forth in a resolution approved by Council, fixing the date of a special election for such purpose, prescribing the form of ballot question to be voted on, and authorizing the appropriate officers to publish notice and to make arrangements for the special election. Resolution number 240030, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, providing for the creation of the Office of the Homeless Services Ombudsperson, and providing for the submission of the amendment to the electors of Philadelphia. Bill number 240061, an ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of the proposal set forth in a resolution approved by Council, proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, further providing for mandatory annual appropriations for the Housing Trust Fund, and authorizing and directing the appropriate officers to publish notice and to make arrangements for the special election. And resolution number 240068, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, further providing for mandatory annual appropriations for the Housing Trust Fund, and providing for the submission of the proposed amendment to the electors of Philadelphia.
Thank you. And before I call on the clerk to call the first panel, would any of my colleagues like to make any opening comments? Okay, seeing none, clerk, will you please call the first panel we have to testify on bill number 240004.
Tom Marrow.
Please approach the witness table. Thank you so much for your presence. You can state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Okay. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson Gilmore Richardson and members of the Law and Government Committee. My name is Thomas Marrow. I am the City Plans Officer for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on bill number 240004, introduced by Chairperson Gilmore Richardson for Council President Johnson. Section 1 of bill number 240004 would, if approved, revise the public notice requirements for public hearings by the Board of Surveyors on changes in the city plan. Currently, these hearings are required to be advertised in the city's 3 daily newspapers having the highest paid circulation. For many years now, the 3 newspapers with the highest paid circulation have been the Inquirer, the Daily News, and the Legal Intelligencer. Recently, the Legal Intelligencer transitioned to a digital-only format, which the City Solicitor's Office has determined does not meet the code requirement of a daily newspaper of paid circulation. Since the Legal Intelligencer is considered the official legal newspaper issued in the city and is a likely place which interested parties would seek to find notice of such hearings, the Department of Streets is desirous of being able to continue to utilize the Intelligencer to advertise such hearings. Bill number 240004 revises the public notice requirements to require advertising in 2 daily newspapers with paid circulation and in the official legal newspaper issued in the city in paper or digital format. The Department of Streets supports this proposed ordinance and recommends it to your committee for favorable action. I thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today and would be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I do have a question in reference to the papers that we are circulating with, and it does not seem that there is any consideration of local newspapers, neighborhood newspapers. And so can you tell me where that fits into this conversation?
Well, I know that the requirement is that the newspapers with the highest paid circulation, and I think that's been determined by the procurement department, I believe.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't really know who would have to be involved in that kind of consideration of what would have to be done
Okay.
to do something like that?
Sure. So I am going to make a suggestion, Madam Chair, that I would be supportive of voting the bill out of committee, but amending at a later point to make sure that we include local neighborhood newspapers, because that is where a lot of people get their news. For example, in my district, I know that the Chestnut Hill Local, most residents get, they get the Daily News or the Inquirer, but really do rely on the Chestnut Hill Local and similar papers throughout the city of Philadelphia, the West Side Weekly and the Scoop, and of course the Sunday Sun, the Philadelphia Tribune, are all papers where in some areas the population strictly gets their news from. So I would like to see an amendment to this legislation. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that maybe would have to be discussed with the law department.
Sure.
Like I said, I can't really speak to
oh,
the
okay,
legal side of that.
understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much, Councilwoman Bass. I actually thought the same thing relative to the Tribune, which is one of the oldest continuously circulating African-American newspapers in the world. In addition to that, as Councilwoman Bass mentioned, the Scoop and West Side Weekly over on my side of town, but I do believe that there is an opportunity here for us to expand the reach outside of the Inquirer and the Daily News, and include additional newspapers that are also circulating throughout Philadelphia communities. And we know that not every single individual in our city can afford to purchase a subscription to the Inquirer or the Daily News, but that we should be considerate of some of the other newspapers that are circulated in communities. And so I don't know if we will be able to reach someone who's from the law department or our city solicitor while we're here, but if we could get relative clarification on that while we're in the hearing, because we have a little bit of time, that would be helpful for us.
Well, I mean, I can pass your concerns up the ladder in the streets department, but I know the bill has other provisions that deal with council committee hearings, notices for those, and the committee reports. And again, it's, I think it's something that has to be considered from the legal aspect.
Understood. And so if we could have someone from the city solicitor's office or the administration, if you all could work with the solicitor's office while we're in the hearing and take an additional testimony, that would be helpful. Okay?
All right.
Thank you very, very much for your testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Have a good day.
You too, thank you.
Any further questions or comments for this witness? Okay. Okay. Thank you very, very much for that testimony regarding Bill number 240004. There being no further panels to testify on 240004, we will now proceed. And if the clerk could please call the next panel for Bill number 240005 and resolution number 240030.
Timothea Ramel and Howard Griffith.
Okay. If you could please approach the witness table, you can state your name for the record, proceed with your testimony. We have a number of witnesses specifically for this panel, so I ask that you submit any written testimony you may have, and please summarize your testimony. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Timothea Ramel. I am here in favor to support the bill for the Ombudsman Office for Homeless Services. I came to Philadelphia almost 2 years ago. I was sent here by the state because I was in a precarious situation and was facing homelessness, and there was no help where I could get where I was in PA. And they sent me to Philadelphia, and I wound up in a homeless shelter here. I was residing at the House of Passage, and I can tell you honestly, for me, it felt like a prison. I did everything that it was requested of me to do. I got a job, I saved money, but there was a lot of things happening there that really affected how things were going to play out for me. One of them was the fact that they would wake me up every hour to see if I was still alive. Now, my question is, how was I supposed to be successful at employment if I couldn't get adequate rest? Staff would continually walk up and down the aisles in the evening shouting, keeping me awake. It was a struggle in the morning to get my medications that I had to take. The food often was spoiled. It made me sick. The place wasn't always clean. Things constantly broke down, which limited the amount of time I had to get ready. Staff at times were abusive. My roommate was taking a shower, and one of the male staff walked in on her, and she had filed a complaint, and nothing was done about it. When it came time for me to leave there, they had a meeting that involved all of case management, people that weren't even involved with my specific case, and I had to share my story, which was very difficult. The whole arrangement was very intimidating, and my fate was already sealed with them as to whether or not I could stay before I even went in there. Oftentimes, I would go to my mandatory case management meeting and be told, we're not having it today. Or I would show up and my case manager would say to me, how's everything going? And I would say, I'm doing okay. And she'd be like, great, we're done. I did not receive any help with housing, even though I wound up getting a social worker at the Mazzoni Center to kind of help me because I wasn't getting help at the shelter. And I was told I qualified for rapid rehousing. And when that social worker worked with my case manager to get the paperwork in, OSHA denied it, saying that they put the wrong dates on it. She had to resubmit it, and they still denied me. So I got zero help along the way. I'm quite upset about it because I felt they could have done better. I mean, I fought hard to get where I am. I'm now on my own. But I want to see accountability. I want to see somewhere where people can turn to and get results. I want to see accountability. I think that's necessary. I think it's fair for the city of Philadelphia as well, that they understand that their money is being spent correctly. You know, homelessness, they can't just put a Band-Aid on it. We need solutions. We need to address why people are homeless. We need to put things in place that will help people transition and be successful. But we also need advocacy because we're not getting it. You know, we're often told, go to OSHA. OSHA does nothing. They just pass the buck back and forth. Oh, well, it's the shelter. No, it's OSHA. And that's not good enough.
So much for your testimony. Thank you for your advocacy. Congratulations to you on your positive transition into stable housing. And we certainly appreciate you sharing your story, as it does help us in the decision-making process, not only for this hearing, but also in our budget process. So we thank you.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, this issue was very dear to me. And it's important for me to make something good out of what happened to me. And I believe you people can help us do that.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. All right, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Howard Griffith, and I am in favor of the Osmonds for the homeless services. I'm waiving my right to speak today because I'm frustrated. So.
Is everything okay, Howard?
No, actually it's not. The shelter that it was put into is retaliating against me after your wishes. My wallet has been stolen. They set it up to where somebody went in my bag in the middle of the night and stole my wallet with all my IDs, my credentials, my cards, and all. And I would need to speak to the gentleman in charge to replace me somewhere else.
Okay.
Because I do have a bad temper, and I'm not trying to ruin what you guys are trying to do for these shelters. So I'm very aggravated and frustrated about it.
I'm sorry to hear that, and I think that's been a part of the frustration, the overall frustration that we have had since this process has started. And I just want to say this for the record for this hearing. We are very, very nervous and frightened around the fact that we feel as though there may be retaliation
There's
against
a lot of
some
it
of
going on
those
right now.
who have been coming to council advocating on behalf of better services in the homeless and shelter system in the city. Some of the individuals who have come to provide advocacy around this issue and speak out for those who often do not have a voice in these chambers and in this room and in this building, they're being retaliated against. And I want to say that for the record.
And I feel, myself, I feel very retaliated against ever since the day we started, so.
So I'm going to ask that if it's someone here from the administration, I'll ask my team also to contact the administration. If we could have someone from the Office of Homeless Services come over to the hearing, we will be here for some time. We need someone from the administration, from the Office of Homeless Services to come over to the hearing so that we could assist some of the individuals who are here who have been dealing with retaliation at some of the shelters that we provide dollars to from Philadelphia City Council. And so I'm putting that on the record. I'm asking my team to reach out to them right now, and I'm asking that they are able, someone, to come over so we can rectify this today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Howard, and I'm very, very sorry that that happened, but you know that my office will continue to reach out.
And I also have more pictures for you of the conditions of the building that I'm in. Plus, I also have a videotape that I had one of my colleagues that I'm with take a picture of Apple Tree not opening their doors when they were supposed to be.
Okay, and so what I would like to do is I'll ask a member of my team to try to extract that information so that we could disseminate that electronically to the committee. And then if you have something you need us to see currently, then I'll ask that the Sergeant at Arms could bring over the video that you would like us to see, and we can look at it one at a time while we
Okay.
continue to take testimony.
Well, I have it right here on.
Great, okay. All right, so we are going to take a very brief pause so that we are able to quickly watch the video.
That's in front of Applebee's this morning while we were waiting to come over here. That's with their doors closed when they should have had their doors open. I had one of my friends take that video because I don't know how to operate the video camera that well.
And for the record, what time is Apple Tree supposed to be open?
I believe 7 o'clock in the morning.
7 o'clock?
Yeah,
Okay.
because when we are out there on Friday mornings, they're open before Mr. Max gets there with the coffee and snacks. So it's roughly around 7 o'clock that their doors are normally open.
Okay, and for the record, this says 7:50 a.m. this morning. Okay, thank you very, very much.
You're quite welcome.
And for the record, the city website also states 7 a.m. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, any questions for the first two witnesses? Any questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, seeing none, if the clerk could please call the next witnesses.
Ty White, Kenneth Blackwell.
Chair now recognizes Councilmember Bass.
And as we're having the other witness approach, I just really wanted to say, if folks are facing retaliation, please, please, please let us know. Our officers want to know if you are faced with retaliation. Any of us, really any member of council, please just let us know, because if you don't tell us, we won't know. But please be in touch about that. That's very important.
You have to approach the witness table and speak into the mic, okay? Howard? Howard? Do you want to be recognized again? Just approach. Okay. Okay. And so if you could please state your names for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Okay, my name is William Kreco. I'm at Center Hope I'm at Center Hope. I've been there for like a week now. Ain't no hot water. It's ice cold water. The ceiling is falling down. It got mice running through. I got one toilet to go, you know, poop and pee and stuff like that. The rest of the toilets are broken. If you go to a different floor, they yell at you, so you're not allowed to go to a different floor and use the bathroom. So what are you supposed to do when you got 100 people in there?
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for your testimony and for being here and for continuing to work with our office as we are seeking to work with the Office of Homeless Services to have you placed, okay?
Okay.
And good quality housing.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Colleague, you have a question? No.
I just want to quickly say thank you. This is eye-opening for many of us, so it's certainly for me. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Kenneth Blackwell. Okay, I'm not currently homeless, but I have experienced homelessness in my times. So I'm basically an advocate for the homeless, and I speak for those who have no voice. I'm here to testify in favor of the ombudsman position to oversee OHS and other service providers. These issues
Pardon me. We cannot hear you, so the stenographer cannot take
I'm
the
sorry.
record.
There
If you
we
can
go.
restart, state your name for the record, proceed with your testimony, and speak directly into the mic.
Okay, sorry about that. My name is Kenneth Blackwell. There we go, I can hear it. Let's see, I'm not currently homeless, but I have experienced homelessness in my time. I'm an advocate for the homeless, and I speak for those who have no voice. I'm here to testify in favor of the ombudsman position to oversee OHS and other service providers. These issues I have experienced personally. So, like the first one would be money mismanagement. Like funds can be better spent, and there is a matter of non-payment to some agencies and or programs, which creates further lack of services and resources for residents. My second one is excessive security. Well, we've heard that a lot, but I literally felt like a prisoner every time I was there. And it was very inconvenient because I worked different hours. I came in, usually would come back at like 10 o'clock-ish. Once these guys found out that I was an advocate trying to make better conditions, I was specifically targeted. Security was extra tight just because it was me. Let's see. And I don't believe in paying for a bunch of security that only know how to degrade people. They're like for instance, the Center of Hope, I actually stayed there before, and the conditions there were pretty bad. There was bed bugs, lice, mold, you name it, they had it. Let's see, and I don't believe in paying for so much money just for people that just harass people. Okay, lack of uniform rules concerning residences. Like OHS, Self Inc., and all the other little ones that are getting funded by city dollars, they're the rules. They have guidelines, but there's no one that actually hold them accountable for when they do not follow the guidelines. There's they make up their own rules, and actual rules change daily. They change daily. Like one day you can do this, next day, without warning, you can't do that, and it's all all bad. Okay. And lack of compassion. A lot of these staff, everyone associated, whether they're actual staff or contractors, have absolutely zero compassion. They will literally treat you like garbage, and that's just not called for. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your advocacy and for your testimony, and congratulations also to you on your successful transition. We wanted to ask you for the record, you did send your phone up with recent pictures. Can you just clarify what location and when the pictures were taken?
Okay.
Meaning what shelter?
Center Hope.
Center for Hope?
Yes, Center for Hope. It's 901 Carlisle Carlisle Street.
Okay. And when were those pictures taken?
Huh?
When were those pictures taken?
Like 2 days ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the record, colleagues, you should know that we just met this gentleman last week at the last hearing when we went out at 7 a.m. in the morning to Apple Tree. And he was just placed with the help of Office of Homeless Services recently in Center for Hope. And so he's been there less than a week. The last hearing we had in the Committee on Finance, they were able to receive services and assistance from OHS. And so this has been happening within the last week, okay? When we first met this gentleman, he was unhoused, okay? Okay? All right, any other questions for these witnesses? Okay, thank you for your testimony. Will the clerk please call the next panel or the next witnesses on this panel?
Ty White and Leland McMore.
Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, my name is Leland McMore, and I'm here to testify in favor of the Ombuds Homeless Services. So, so I have been homeless since November, seeking shelter and guidance. So I haven't been getting help. It's like, for example, I've been being told I had to be homeless for a year, and last night, was it Outreach told me personally that they guesstimate that I would seek help before winter. And it was weird that they walk up to you, offer you water, and ask you, do you need help? You need somewhere to go, but don't place you nowhere. That's all I have to say. That's why I choose to be on the street, because the shelter system is not, I don't know, I'm kind of nervous, so that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you so much for your testimony, Leland. You know that it is our goal to try to get you in good quality housing. And so we will continue to work with you, okay, towards that end. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Tashiana White.
I'm sorry.
Tashiana White.
Okay, and then please proceed with your testimony.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize. I'm a little nervous. So pretty much when I first came back up to Philadelphia I started, I was a resident at the House of Passage, and the staff there, you have some individuals who pretty much pick and choose which policies they do and don't want to follow. The way they speak to individuals is just so nasty. Like, they talk to them like y'all should be grateful that we're doing something for you. Don't be 1-2 minutes late for curfew. They're going to make you take a drug test in front of them, and if you don't, then it's going to be an issue. I had actually got into a little situation there. Like, none of the staff have anything negative to say to me. I probably could even get them to vouch for that part. But I accidentally broke them a glass window in the kitchen by accident, and it pretty much was a concern of theirs that I had to leave the same day after I came back from the hospital. My case manager at the time told me that she was gonna, hold my things for me until I found a place to stay. And maybe just last week, they just decided to throw everything away, including all my personal, the clothes I didn't care about. It's just the principle. Like, it's women who, at that shelter, who need clothes. Y'all could have just gave it to them instead of just trashing everything. So now I have to be in the process of getting a new ID, social birth certificate, which is not an issue because it's services that help that, but it's just the principle. Then when I reached out to my case manager, that's when they informed me that she no longer worked there. So I was speaking to her supervisor, and she pretty much told me that they was only supposed to keep my things for 72 hours, and I left in January. But if I left in January and y'all just tossed everything last month, that's more than 72 hours. Y'all could have, whatever case may be. A lot of these intake places, their policy pretty much is allow us to talk to you however if you want service. If you want a bed, if we tell you to jump, you better jump. The the conditions that these shelters in. I help, I do take pictures of everything. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to or not, but my sister I talk to her daily, and my memory is not always the best, but I inform her with a lot of the shelters and intake places that I do go to. When you hear individuals tell you when a certain situation happens, you're supposed to write intakes, when you try to turn them in and then staff members tell you that you can't because you got to get certain individual names on there, or when you see OHS supervisors throwing them in the trash, you don't want to turn them in. I have a pile of incident reports of things that should have been spoken on or handled. But once you see certain things of that nature, the person you're supposed to go to for help, throw them in the trash and ignore them, you don't want to ask for help because that's the person you're supposed to get it from. And it's just sickening, like the way these, especially like currently where I'm at now, we have to pay a food contribution and food stamps. When it's 12 individuals living in a household and the food goes like that, that's a problem.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Where I'm currently staying, we have to pay, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, food contribution. Like we have to give them $197 in food stamps. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that correct. I apologize if like I said, I'm nervous. So in this particular place, I don't want to ignore the good that staff do. I do, but I'm not going to pretty much acknowledge what you're supposed to be doing. Now, it is certain staff, not even just where I'm currently staying at, in other situations and other intake places and things that do bend, the rules and everything of that nature. And sometimes they pick and choose who they want to follow and don't follow. See, it's certain things that I don't tell individuals unless needed be. When I was at a certain intake place, once I informed them of a certain personal thing within myself, that's when supposedly I had made a threat and they banned me for 30 days. Once they found out something that I usually don't inform individuals unless need be. Pretty much, I pretty much told this particular intake place that I was transgendered. And it seemed like everything was going smooth up until that point because they was having a problem about me getting placed somewhere. Once I told them that, that's when they told me to come back the next day. When I returned back to the place on Roosevelt, 802, what is the place? It's right there on North Broad Street. I can't remember the address exactly, 804 North Broad Street, I believe. Once I informed them of that, that's when supposedly I had made a threat and I had to get banned for 30 days, so I just didn't even bother to go back. Anybody who know me, I'm not trying to say that person was lying or not, but I'm not that kind of person to make a threat to anybody whatsoever, but neither here or there, yeah, like I was saying too, one of the places I also did go to was the Navigation Center. A gentleman that I'm good friends with, when I was about to go eat some of the food that they had on the boxes that's on the floor, he told me that it had been sitting there for 3 days because he normally goes there since he worked, and that's one of the shelters that stay open late. When I was about to drink some of the milk, he told me the milk been sitting on the floor in them boxes that they provide the food and drinks for the past 2 days. Why are y'all still trying to give bad milk? These shelters, and I always ask my sister that, I'm like, they can't be getting funds, because if so, then where are they going? And then when you ask individuals, when they short of food or when they short of supplies, oh, y'all have to go downtown to talk to, what is it called, Self. Y'all have to go down there to talk to them. Y'all got to go talk to them. Then when you get stabbed telling you, that's not our problem, you're the reason why you're homeless, you don't think individuals like us don't know that? You throwing that in our face is what doing what exactly? And then when it's small, it could be something little. When the weather is bad, when it's pouring down rain and you still have us standing in line and you only have 3 people in there and you telling us we got to wait, it's 3 o'clock. This building should have been open. There's no reason that if you arrive at 3, you don't get in there till damn near, excuse my language, until 4 or 5. And then don't even try to defend yourself because then you're in the wrong, go find your own arrangements. Yeah, that's like I said, that's the last thing too. Like when you see really like supervisors or OHS workers telling you, like pretty much turning a blind eye, even when you address something because they don't feel like dealing with the paperwork, who else are you supposed to turn to? I have gotten more assistance from homeless individuals or recovering addicts than I did in being in these shelters, honestly. And I have heard individuals say that they rather sleep outside than going in the shelters, because I'd rather get better help, better care, living on the streets than actually going to the people that I'm supposed to be getting help from. Like, and I only say homeless, like when I say that, I don't so much involve myself in that. Yes, I am homeless, but I'm just now experiencing it. The individuals that I have came across, they've been going through this for years. And so many people say that they want to speak up, but they so much more afraid of not being able to get a bed or getting help that they just go ahead, talk to me however you want to. You know, at least I know I'm gonna be able to sleep here tonight. Like, but that shouldn't be how it is, like, whatsoever.
Wow. Thank you very, very much for your testimony and for coming in today. I just want to ask, the chair now recognizes Councilmember Bass, and then I'll recognize other colleagues for remarks.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate you coming in too. I have to tell you, I'm shocked to hear that there's a food contribution requirement. And I think that that's something that really has to be answered, particularly from providers that receive city dollars and tell us that they're going to be providing food, that they're going to, that part of their budget that they submit to us includes that they're going to be providing, meals to those that they're serving. So I think that that's something that requires further investigation from this committee, and I'll be talking to Madam Chair. When you first said it, I was a little bit shocked. I was like, what again? Food contribution?
Yes.
Because it's just not supposed to be. But, we would like to get further information if it's possible in terms of what shelter that was. And if this is a practice that other people have come across, and I see everybody shaking their head. Okay, all right, well, good, very good to know. And again, some of these things, if you don't tell us, we don't know. Now that we know, we have the information and we're armed to be able to do something about it. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair now recognizes
Yeah.
Councilmember Landau.
First, I can already start by saying thank you to everybody who's testified today. It's really important that you tell us your stories, and we're really sorry about what we're hearing. It's upsetting that the city services are not providing adequate services to you. But Ty, in particular to you, I wanted to say I'm deeply disturbed to hear that when you came out as transgender to the shelter system, that you were banned for 30 days versus, accepted like everybody else and treated with respect and dignity. As you know, it's illegal for any city office or entity to discriminate against people based on gender identity or a host of other factors. So, I'm going to give you my card and we can talk more about this, but I want, you are welcome in our shelter system just like everybody else is, and we will all work towards a day when nobody needs our shelter system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, colleague. Would you please call the next witnesses for this panel? Thank you both so much.
Norman Bach, Max Ray Reek.
Okay, you can please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Okay, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Speak directly into the mic.
Good morning. My name is Norman Bunk. I'm here to support the ombudsman position. And I've been in the shelter system about a year. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for being here and listening. Really, it's wonderful. It means a lot. I don't want to waste your time, so I wrote some things down. I'm going to shoot through them. The things I think are most important for you to hear from me. Everything everybody said about the physical condition and everything I've experienced, but it's already been said. The main thing is the homophobia in the shelter system. I'm a gay man, and this is just an anecdote to give you a sense of the attitude generally of staff toward gay people. When they didn't think I could hear, they would talk to each other and say, "He's a faggot." That was how they saw me, that's how they rated me, and more disturbing is their attitudes toward me as I stayed in the shelter reflected that homophobia. And I'm by far and away not a perfect person, but what I can tell you with honesty and accuracy is that when I've been in the shelter, I've been grateful, humble, respectful, and follow the rules. But they talk to me like I'm garbage. I have a somewhat unique perspective because before I went on disability for 20 years, I was a licensed clinical social worker. And so I've been on both sides of this. Now I'm on disability, and that's another thing. There's no provision in the shelters for someone with disability. So what I need, I have bad credit and no references. So I've been here a year. It's really hard for me to find a place. And I'm applying now for apartments, but they're $50 a pop just for the apartment. So anyway, a standard list at shelters of people who will rent to people like me with no violence, no problems, just money, past money problems, but with an income would be great.
Pardon me as you proceed with your testimony, but I believe that there's a landlord unit within the Office of Homeless Services. So maybe we should also connect you with that unit. They're supposed to have a unit that does just what you are describing.
That would be great, thank you. And something you should know would be useful for you to know is that at the shelters, like one would think that they would know that, right? Because I go to each of the staff, do you have a list of rooms for rent? Do you know this? Do you know that? No, 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 no. Which brings me to my next point. And probably because I was a social worker, the case managers, they have paid case managers at all of these shelters. I've been to several, City of Hope, Philly House, Olney, but they don't do anything. I'm sorry to put it that way. They tell you they can help you get an ID and that's it. I'll give you two quick examples. A guy came in, I happened to be in the TV room at City of Hope. He came in, when you come in, you gotta fill out this stack of papers, intake. Okay, so the lead case manager gives him this stack of papers, says, fill this out and I'll be back in 20 minutes. Came back in 20 minutes, the guy hadn't filled it out. So the case manager said, I'll give you 10 more minutes. If you don't fill this out, you're back on the street. I went over to the guy and pulled him aside so he wouldn't be embarrassed. I said, how's your reading and writing? He went like this, shook his head no. I said, would you like me to help you fill it out? He said, yeah. I filled out the thing for him. I went to the case manager privately after it. I said, it may interest you to know the guy's illiterate. You could have asked why he didn't fill it out. They're about to throw him back on the street. So, and there was another case there where a man had been there a year. He was a veteran. I got to talking to him. I said, do you know about veteran services on 4th Avenue? No, no one ever told me. I arranged with him through his medical insurance to get a van, made an appointment there. He went there. In 2 weeks, he got housing. But he was languishing there a year. They had 3 case managers there. They just couldn't be bothered. There are extraordinary mental health needs, as I'm sure you can imagine. I'm not suggesting that these places be full-service mental health places. I know resources are limited, but a simple referral. I said to the one case manager, do you know that there are intensive case managers for a lot of these guys could benefit profoundly from? Oh, we don't do that. We just do IDs. Okay, so you got all these guys in there, and they have serious issues, and they're open to help, but they don't tell them, they don't bother, and then when they don't, get a job and whatever, they say, okay, this client is bad. It's a bad situation. So really, if at least the case managers could have standard referrals for the kinds of problems that they see when they come in. I want to say that I'm now at Kalo Haven on West Tioga Street. I want to give them a shout out because if all of you, and I mean this very seriously, if you want a model for how a shelter can be successfully run, please talk to those people, they do it right. The staff are respectful, they accommodate a range of mental health situations, they're very understanding, the food is decent, it's really, I can't believe I'm there, I'm so grateful. And I got there by calling the homeless outreach number after I had to leave the ODAT Lehigh 25th Street safe haven shelter because it was like the lady said before, it was like a prison. And that was horrible. I felt like at the lowest point in my life, I felt like they were kicking me when I was down. But this Kalo Haven, I called Miss Tanya at Project Home, helped me get in there, and it is a model.
Can you repeat the name again?
Tanya, I don't know her
No, I'm sorry, the shelter.
Oh, Kalo, Kailo, Haven. I think it's 2107 West Tioga. I only bring it up because really, it's a model to really look at. They're doing it right. Lastly, I want to say your concerns about retaliation by staff are quite valid. In my experience, the staff sort of, at the other places I was at, sort of form a kind of gang. It's us against the clients. They're hateful toward us. They lie to cover each other's misdeeds. And if you, as respectfully as a person can say a complaint or concern, they blacklist you from then on. How does that work? When you get up to the food line, they give you less food. When you have to go for your meds, oh, come back in an hour. They just ride you until you want to leave. And I've even heard staff say, we'll do X, Y, and Z, and they'll leave. So it's a bad, I would advocate for better screening for the people who work in these shelters. I know they're not paying them $1 million, I get that, but just to screen for basic attitude toward homeless people and mentally ill people and gay people, and just basic human decency, screen for that. Thank you.
I want to thank you for your testimony and just all the information that you shared and just your experience as a licensed clinical social worker. I am sorry that anyone called you out of your name and that you had that experience, but I'm so grateful that you have shared with us. This has certainly been exceedingly helpful for me, even in talking about the model for the shelter system and how we can seek to expand that work. And so I thank you very, very much for being here today and for your advocacy. Okay, if you could please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Max Ray Reek. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of the ombudsperson for social services. I just wanted to quickly say, I don't know if all of you have read the standards for shelters in Philadelphia, the contract standards, as well as the Bill of Rights that homeless folks have. When we first began as ACT UP, speaking with people who were living in shelters and outside the Office of Homeless Services, we thought what was needed was a Bill of Rights, but we found that every single thing people have testified for is on paper a right they have in the shelter system, not to have retaliation, to have, be able to say, I was wrongfully terminated and have a hearing to be reinstated, to have clean, adequate food, clean facilities, accessible bathrooms. So all of these rights already exist on paper, and so that's why we're calling for an ombudsperson to enforce them. I just wanted to speak quickly to the issue of people collecting food stamps. OHS will tell you that doesn't happen in the shelters that are city funded, but OHS also places a lot of people in recovery houses. And we know that the recovery houses take food stamps, and we believe that they do it in violation of the state's so the state says that they can collect food stamps for an individual if the individual has been found to not be able to be trusted to use their own food stamps at a store because they're selling their food stamps in exchange for something they're not allowed to have in a recovery house. But it's very specific that needs to be spent on that individual for their food with them having discretion. So I have on my phone a photograph of a ACT UP member who's staying in a recovery house. And I can give you, it's a Fresh Start operated by Marikey. And it's a letter on letterhead with the DBHIDS on the top, and then the name of Joyce Sacco, Housing Director of Housing and Homeless Services Unit at DBHIDS, but it doesn't have her signature on it. And it says that their residents are required to pay 70% of their monthly income, up to $197 a month. our member who was there said that they didn't actually feed them adequate food, that the staff would sometimes skip serving meals, there were no snacks available or food between meals, and they weren't nutritious, adequate, healthy food. So their food stamps were being taken and not used the way they're supposed to be. So we can submit that for the record. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that clarification and also for your testimony before your work. If it were not for your outreach and the work that you do early in the mornings, all night long, standing outside of Apple Tree, we would not be here today. And so I want to say thank you for all that you have done and all the advocacy that you organize that has just been so pivotal to us reaching this moment. The goal is to have an ombudsman person who can look out for our unhoused and homeless population, address concerns on a daily basis, and ensure that they are having not only a pleasurable experience, but can have access to good quality housing as well as good quality services so that they could transition out of the homeless services system and into permanent housing. That's the goal. The goal is we shouldn't need a permanent office of homeless services all the time, because we should be transitioning folks out of the system and into permanent, good quality housing. So thank you very, very much. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Along those lines, could I have the name of that place to call who's got the housing, landlord information?
Yes, and so we're working now to arrange a meeting with all of you right now here today with the administration so that you could receive the information for the landlord unit. We are working in the background to arrange that meeting right now. My team and the administration are here, and we will work together to meet with you all right now while you're here. So if you all could connect, please, I'm sorry, Norman, connect Norman with the landlord unit based on some of the work that we have done and the budget detail. There should be at least 5 employees in that very unit. So there should be someone who could help you. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, and please keep us posted today. We will not conclude this hearing, and we will not take any action or go into a public meeting until I hear back from you all. Thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the next witnesses for this panel?
Archibald Joseph Farley and Anthony Winston.
Okay, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Okay, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Archie Joseph Farley, Jr.
Please proceed with your testimony.
My testimony, first of all, I'm here to support the bill for giving safe and secure housing for all people, not just housing for homeless, but everyone deserves to have supportive housing. My testimony is from 1995 when I first came in contact with OSHA. I have a biracial marriage. We were sent to a shelter that was run by Muslims, and there was never any food for us. And when we went to OSHA to complain about it, they blackballed us for 5 years. We were not allowed in any of the shelters here in Philadelphia for 5 years. We had to go over to Camden to seek shelter. And then as our story started circulating throughout the city and people started noticing us still doing positive things, people started asking questions about our situation. I'm currently in a shelter, and we've been asked questions lately about being in this courtroom. Why are you in courtroom 400? What's going on in there? How are you talking about us? And my answer to that was everybody's under the gun. Nobody's getting not like shined on them. So if you feel as though you're doing something wrong, then maybe you should be concerned. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. And just for the record, when you say OSHA,
When, in 1995, OSHA ran most of the shelter systems here in Philadelphia. And OHS was what they called OSHA back then.
I'm just stating that for the record because I think, some folks may think OSHA is a training or certification. And so we just wanted to get that on the record so that we have that on the transcript for the hearing. Thank you very, very much for your testimony and for your advocacy. And in fact, it's so funny that before you came here to testify, I happened to be in Kensington the Friday before with my colleague, Councilmember Lozada and Councilmember Phillips and Councilmember O'Rourke. And we were walking the avenue, the 3000 and the 3100 block of Kensington Avenue, and we saw you waving at us from across the street, and you were down there doing advocacy. And we happened to see you at the hearing the next week, and so it just so happened that was the case. But we appreciate your ongoing advocacy.
We just trying to make people put smiles on people's faces when, in light of today's economy and everything, everybody has a frown on their face. I'm part of CARP, which is Community Action Relief Program. We're in Kensington, and every Sunday at 1 o'clock, I'm there trying to put a smile on someone's face. I was homeless and still was doing it every Sunday faithfully. They're letting people know that there's still people out here that care just because you're a human being. It has nothing to do with race, creed, color, or where background you came from or didn't come from. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. If you could please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yes, hi, my name is Anthony Winston. Well, just to be truthful and honest, I'm for the ombudsman. But lately, I can say this, okay? When you have lights on, either 12 hours a day, probably 24 hours a day, it makes you feel like you're a prisoner of war. It makes you feel like you have, especially for somebody that has PTSD, it's a trigger. And it makes you, it gives you a headache. It does. You can't say it doesn't. I was just written up Saturday for turning the lights out because the rest of the guys on the floor chose to have the lights out. We wanted the lights out for the day. Now, if you go up on my third floor, the lights are out all day long. Nobody turns the lights on. Not one worker turns the lights on. But they come down on the second floor and persist to turn the lights on us on a daily basis. Now that hurts my eyes. After a while, fluorescent light bulbs hurt my eyes, so I have to go and sit outside until the time I come in, about 9:30 at night. So my eyes can, get an adjustment, because having the lights on a daily basis, even trying to go to sleep, it's hard, it's rough. It's a tactic that people use actually in war to help, keep people into a certain place and a certain docile in the brain. For some fact is, it's written down in the CIA books for that. They use it, they really do. And you have shelters out here that use this on a daily basis. It's like in prison. Why do you think prisons have lights on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? The only time they get turned out is turned to a night light. Well, what's a night light? That's still a light. That there's no, how are you going to sleep? You can't sleep. So you're sitting there and you're sitting there. Well, what are you to do? What are you to do? Who am I to go to? I tell people, and they just, case managers look at you and like, okay, what do you want us to do? Or it's a privilege of you being in here. Well, last time I checked, breathing is a privilege. Me sitting here today and speaking in front of you, that's a privilege. So what else, what more do I have to give you? I've been giving you everything I need to try to make my situation better. Jobs out here don't want to hire people like us because they want to look down upon you, because why? They seen you sitting on a street corner thinking that you were begging for change. Well, I'm not begging for change. I'm not out here for that. Me personally, money can come and go. I can't take it with me when I die. So why have an attachment issue to something that I don't really see a need to? That's all I gotta say.
Well, thank you very much for your work and your continued advocacy. Any questions for this panel from my colleagues? Okay. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the next witnesses for this panel?
Stacy Miller and Joelle Huggins.
Okay, as you approach, if you could please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
I don't believe Joelle is here, so next is Malcolm Gant. And then last for this panel will be Noble Henderson.
Hi, my name is Stacy Miller.
Please state your name for the record, thank you, and then proceed with your testimony and try to summarize your testimony if possible.
I am currently with ACT UP, and I am here to support the ombudsman person. I would like to tell you a few things that have happened to me. I was homeless for 2 years here in Philadelphia. During that time, none of the people that were taking care of me told me that I needed a case manager in order to step up to get housing at that time. So anyways, I kind of got lucky by having illnesses and getting placed into the hotel, and they let me know what was going on, you know. When I first got here, I was placed in House of Passage, where in the morning they gave me a little tiny box of cereal, about this big, no bowl because you use the box, a little milk, and an orange in a water. That was to sustain me for the day until I returned in the evening to have one sandwich, which consisted of one slice of ham, one slice of cheese, and dry bread, water, and an orange. Now, I'm aware that the city does pay $2,100 around $2,100 per bed, per month for each homeless individual. And I'm not understanding why these things are going on. Why do we have dirty bathrooms? Why do we have no water? Why do we have mold in our shelters? Why do we have mean people, speaking cruelly? Why do we have our workers underpaid and treating our homeless, our humans? They're treating us unhuman. I have been in a shelter where I got woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, screamed at, "Get up, get out of bed, put your feet on the ground. You will sweep and mop the floor before you eat your breakfast." That was for the whole room. At the House of Passage, my first night there, they placed me in a bunk bed, which was on the top, and they set off the fire alarm a couple times. Well, they didn't have a ladder on the bunk bed. What happened? I fell. I got bruised from here all the way to my hip. I was so scared to sue because I needed a home to live in. I needed a roof over my head, so I signed off on it. There are so many things I could tell you. Another shelter, Randolph Court, they threw me out because the girl before me brought in crackers, and because I was with her, she brought in the crackers and didn't check them in, like get them examined. And I got thrown out. So where did I have to go? a woman, where did I have to go? On the street for 2 weeks waiting for my hearing. 2 weeks. I had to worry if I was going to be raped, robbed. This is ridiculous. An ombudsman would help us completely. Keep the rules as they're supposed to be. Keep the shelters clean and taken care of properly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Landau.
Again, just have to say to everybody testifying, thank you so much for telling your stories. This is just horrible to hear, and we can't wait to help make change here. But Ms. Stacy, one question for you is, when you said you had to wait, you were homeless on the street for 2 weeks before your hearing, do you mean a hearing with OHS?
I do.
Because you were banned based on the cracker incident?
I do. I had to wait for a phone call for 2 weeks, which could have been done actually that day, but however, 2 weeks I waited on, and I was on the streets, and thank God I had met some strangers, helpless, sorry. Thank God I met some other homeless people that kind of protected me.
I want to get a handle a little bit on the process. You were told to leave, and then you appealed it technically. You asked for a hearing. You asked to speak to somebody higher up, and they told you. How does that work?
Upon being requested to leave, they had me sign paperwork requesting a fair hearing, and the hearing then would take place in 2 weeks. Is that what you needed?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean, it made total, it was nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the only, well, there was one other woman here, but I'm you know, there's no other women to speak about the women's side of the shelters. And it's completely different from the men's sides. I'm going to be honest about that. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your testimony. The chair wanted to recognize the presence of our council president, Kenyatta Johnson. Thank you so much for stopping by, Prez, and also a member of the Committee on Law and Government, Council Member Mark Squilla. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your testimony. If you could proceed with stating your name for the record and then give us your testimony.
Good morning, Council. My name is Malcolm Gann, age 53. I'm here to testify in support of the Ombudsman for the Office of Human Services, Homeless Services, I apologize. I'm here today to testify in regards to retaliation. I've been in the system for about 2 years. I've suffered massive retaliation because I refuse to take disrespect. I refuse to be treated less than a human being, you know, and I listened to my peers testify, and it brought tears to my eyes because I've lived a lot of those experiences, you know, and one of my peers talked about Navigation Center, which is a place that I stayed frequently because it was easily accessed. However, let me just give you a day. I leave Navigation at 5 o'clock in the morning. I come downtown. I would go to the Hub of Hope if I was allowed in there, because I've spent more time banned from there, almost as much time as I've been in the system. Yet, I would leave there at 3 o'clock, catch a van, arrive at Navigation about 4 o'clock, and no matter weather conditions, you had to stand out there and wait until 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, you were let in, but you had to arrive hours early because there's a limited amount of spots. There's about 25 women allowed in and 15 men. And once you were allowed in, the place was frequently dirty, which is my experience throughout the shelter system. I've stayed in the majority of the shelters in the system. You know, food, disgusting, very inedible. You know, the staff I mean, it's pretty much par for the course throughout the system. You have people who talk to you like you're less than a human being, like you're a dog, you're a small child, you know, and this is my first time being homeless. I've been a taxpayer all my life. You know, I'm a 53-year-old man. I have 5 grown children that I've raised, grown, independent. I have 14 grandkids, you know, and when I came into this system, I came in very humble, very respectful, and it wasn't reciprocated in any way. You know, I'm been constantly banned from services. Case in point, at navigation, there was a gentleman who was severely mentally ill. I was attacked by this gentleman 3 times in 1 week, you know, and I brought it to the attention of navigation. There was no protections. There was nothing done. What ended up happening was we got into an altercation at the Harbor Hope where I physically assaulted him because I was tired of being attacked. I'm tired of being, you know, I was tired of worrying about somebody doing something to me, you know, but overall, this system is the shelter system is a joke. It's a complete and utter joke. You know, I don't know what they're doing with the money because it's not being spent on cleaning because the places are filthy. There's one facility that I've been to that was relatively clean. That would be St. John's, around the corner, 13th and Arch. 13th and Arch, I believe, but it's somewhere in that area. But anyway, I've stayed at ODAT, Navigation, Station House. I mean, I've really ran the gamut of the whole thing. And throughout, I've been nothing but mistreated, disrespected, you know, talked to like I'm less than a human being, and I refuse to accept that treatment because I don't treat people like that. And I'm a product, well, I'm actually an ex-employee of the shelter system. It was a while ago, 34 years ago, yet it was totally different. People were treated with dignity and respect. Today, it's like we're dogs, we're miscreants, you know, and we're a burden. And to me, it's just ridiculous because my peers, I heard my story 1,000 times up here this morning about these different facilities, the employees, and so on and so forth. And I don't understand what these people are collecting money for. Honestly. Food is inadequate, the places, and me personally, I suffer from asthma, emphysema, and COPD. I go into a place that's nasty, it's dirty, it's dusty, it's filthy. They don't have cleaning crews. They don't even have people who are responsible for cleaning. If I go into a shelter facility, I have to start cleaning. I have to ask for cleaning products, please, so I can clean a bathroom, like at Navigation. There are 40 individuals in there. There are only 2 bathrooms and 2 showers. And they tell you you have 5 minutes to use the bathroom, you have 15 minutes to use the shower. Now, if I get in there at 7 o'clock, I wait until 12 midnight just to take a shower. I'm woke up at 4:30 in the morning and told to get out the door. Like, and to me, I don't even understand what's the purpose of that shelter. Only for me is that I know that that's a place that I can get in because other places, my name is very well known throughout the system because I don't tolerate being disrespected. I don't talk to people, you know, I don't treat people with disrespect. Yeah, I can go throughout this shelter system, and they know my name very well. And I make no apologies for speaking about the conditions. I refuse to make any apologies because I demand to be treated like a human being wherever I go. And I'm not begging but I'm in a precarious position where I need help. So I ask these entities for help. And it's crazy because, like at Navigation, we have churches who have technically adopted us. And they come and they bring massive amounts of food and things, and the staff takes this food and puts it up. I heard somebody say something about milk sitting out for 3 days. I've opened a carton of milk at Navigation and drank it and had chunks of, you know, curdled milk that's been sitting out for days. You know, a lot of the donations that come in, and I mean, people bring us like cases of juice and things of that nature. All that stuff disappears. It never gets to the clients. The other part that's prevalent in this system is when you go to a shelter, an overnight shelter, when the clients go to sleep, the staff goes to sleep as well. And I don't understand that because I want a job where I can get paid for sleeping, honestly, because it will really help me out, you know. But I'm also in a position where I fought and struggled and gotten my disability. Yeah, I'm still stuck in the shelter system where I can't afford to pay out 60% of my check to rent a room, you know, and still take care of myself. You know, I've approached other case managers outside of the shelter system because I stayed at ODAT, and I got kicked out of ODAT, and when I got kicked out of ODAT, my housing, it just went by the wayside. And what I got kicked out for was, one day I was in all day, and I'm a recovering addict, and we had an NA marathon all day, and I forgot to sign the missile, whatever it is that you sign in at night. Even though I was in the facility all day on camera, and they kicked me out, and my housing just disappeared, you know, and I find the housing, like for me, now I have the ability to pay for subsidized housing. Yeah, I get zero help. All I get is shunned and turned away by the system. You know, and I'm at a point where, at this point, I will keep testifying, and I will keep talking about these conditions because they can't do anything else to me. They've retaliated against me and done everything they could possibly do to me, and there's nothing more. And I'm tired of being, being a part of this system, but I'm also tired of the people behind me who don't have a voice, who won't speak up for themselves. I'll speak for them, and I'll take the weight. You know, and that's what I have. Thank you for allowing me to testify today.
Thank you for your advocacy and for your voice.
Yes, ma'am.
And for your willingness to speak out on behalf of others. Just appreciate you very, very much. Any comments or questions for this panel? Okay, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, I'm Noble Henderson, here in favor of the ombudsperson for the Office of Homeless Services. I am not homeless, all right? I do not have a story to share. That's why I wanted to go last. But I want to show appreciation for the council members that are here, that are fighting for these people, because council has failed to do this time and time again. I also want to show appreciation to my comrades, but most importantly, I wanted to say the ombudsperson is helpful because when you're talking about trying to transition somebody from a state in their life where they have nothing, what they need is the ability to see that they can get something. I know because my mom has been houseless for 4 years. She's a recovering addict. I've helped her with her recovery. I've walked her through every step of her process. What people need is to see that they can get somewhere. They need help, but these conditions aren't getting people anywhere. You know, it's all life is a mentality game. And when you beat people up and you push them down, they will stay pushed down. And I'm tired of this narrative that houseless people are houseless because it's their fault. Yes, people make mistakes, but we also aren't allowing them a chance to recover. And if these people sitting over here had the chance to recover, they would recover because those are great people, and I know each and every one of them. And I appreciate y'all for trying to fight for them and allowing them the chance to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for your work with your mom, and congratulations to your mom, and thank you for your testimony, okay? All right, are there any additional witnesses for panel one? Okay, seeing none, we will now proceed with panel two.
Mike Zakagny.
Thank you so much for being here. If you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony on behalf of the administration. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Proceed.
Good morning, Chair Gilmore Richardson and members of the Committee on Law and Government. My name is Michael Zakagny, and I represent the Office of Human Resources. I'm here today to testify on Bill 240005. You have my testimony. I may just summarize it for you, but what I'd like to do first, and I hope you let me digress from my testimony and just say, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and hear these stories, actually more than stories, these life experiences of the people that are in the shelters and people who are struggling with homelessness. And I was glad that I was able to sit here and listen to these individuals, and I thank them for coming in. So I think the administration understands and some of the concerns that have been raised and really does want to work with council to fix what we've heard here today. The only thing that I sort of want to opine on is the position itself and the structure. And we've had similar conversations in the past about this. I'm not saying that this isn't needed. We'd love to talk about the structure of the position. There are some things we'd like to bring up and discuss. For example, the investigatory powers versus the advocacy of the position. Many times they don't match in such a position, but these are things that are really technical, and I'd rather not delve into them today. But the one thing we feel, or at least the administration feels, and I do, and we've had these discussions before, is that charter change may not always be the best process to handle organizational design. So that was one of the things that I wanted to come here today. The administration has asked me to come here today to basically present. But again, the life stories that I've heard today have been very moving, and I think council's work on this, the administration's work on this, is something that's necessary and that is important.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sicagni, for your testimony and for your work. We've been working together since my first term on the first bill and resolution that I introduced as a member of council, and I certainly appreciate your willingness to work together and, seek to reach some level of happy medium to try to move the needle forward. And thank you for the acknowledgement of the life stories that have been shared and the experiences that have been shared at the hearing today. I did have an opportunity in advance to review your testimony and appreciate the concerns that have been raised by the administration, but want to state for the record that I think now more than ever it is exceedingly important for us to have an ombudsman person who can work with our unhoused population in the city to ensure that they are receiving the services necessary. And even with some of the things that have transpired today, and knowing that it's an individual third-party independent person that the unhoused population could connect with around services and the quality of those services, because I certainly would not want anyone anywhere in government or the administration or the Office of Homeless Services to think that my offices want to and seek to help individuals who have reached out to our office since all of this advocacy has begun is a way for me to place spies in shelters, because that's what I heard was said today. And I want to say that for the record. I'm not placing spies in shelters in the city of Philadelphia. When people reach out to my office and they need a place to stay and they are unhoused, it is my duty as a member of Philadelphia City Council, it's my sworn duty, it's a part of the oath that I have taken as a member of this body to connect individuals to needed and necessary services. And I want to be clear that I know you did not state that, but that is information that I have just recently received since we've been in this hearing, so I want to put it on the record. I'm not placing anyone in any shelter anywhere to be a spy. You're talking about someone who was sleeping outside of City Hall for 3 years. Does no one care about that? And we're seeking to get housing for individuals who have no place to go, who are stating that the conditions are very poor. And we want to make a difference for not only the individuals that you see here, but for the thousands of folks who have to interact with this system, who do not have the opportunity to come to this chamber and speak up on their own behalf and on behalf of their loved ones who are also in the system. And so that is the reason why we are pushing for the creation of this office. I want to work with the administration on this. I think it's exceedingly important because as a member of council and as members of council, we allocate the dollars from the general fund side of their departmental budget for their spend on procuring services for our shelter system. But it is absolutely unacceptable, some of the things we've heard today, some of the quality or lack of quality control issues that we've heard, some of the conditions that we continuously hear about in these facilities, how people are being treated. That is not how you treat people. That's not how we as a city should be treating people or allow people in our constituency to be treated. And I just want to state again for the record, through this advocacy work, through this legislation and all the work that I've been doing, I am not placing spies in shelters. Thank you very, very much.
Can I say something also?
Yes. Chair recognizes Councilmember Bass.
Thank you. So, as the chair lady just mentioned, you know, the testimony today has been very, very disturbing. And so I'd like to know from your perspective, what action steps you all may want to take to address some of these items.
So if you're talking about the specific issues around the Office of Homeless Services,
Yes.
I don't know if I can speak directly to that.
Is there somebody available who could give us some idea as to what specifically, you know, based on what was testified to today, what are we going to do about it? Because that's really what it boils down to. What are we going to do to fix it?
I don't know if there's someone here today. I've been asked to come to speak. I will certainly say this. We would love to sit down and talk about this position and about how we structure this position, how do we get this position up and running, and how do we leverage it for the most impact. We have several ombudsman positions within the city right now. I am a proponent. We have one that sits in the CAO dealing with employees, and we have one that sits, I believe, in the Office of the Inspector General. So there may be a even larger need. I don't know. I have not spoken to the administration on this, but they're the type of structural issues from at least the position itself. I am sure Mayor Parker has spoken about the need to basically reach out and elevate all of our services throughout the city. I think she's committed to doing that. She's very passionate about doing that. I don't have to tell this council. You know her much better than I do. And I think the ability to look into individual departments to see where we can make improvements is certainly something that we should be doing, and we should be doing it across the city, including the Office of Homeless Services. I apologize that I'm not able to speak directly to those issues here today, but I am sure these are things that we want to fix also. I was here for the transfer ordinance, so I've heard some of the concerns that have come up, and these are concerns that a lot of this can be done through sort of looking at these processes and working with those who are both stakeholders and also those people who are delivering those processes to sort of improve how do we provide this service.
Okay. So, you know, I know that there's no one here to speak on this today, but I would like to see a sense of urgency in the same way that, you know, like that someone would take a shot at my colleague, the chairman here, and say that she's, you know, doing anything less than her absolute duty, not just a member of council, but it really is a human being, to make sure that people are housed safely and receive a quality of care that we all should be entitled to, because I know that but for the grace of God, there go I. Any one of us at any time, any moment could have, you know, the floor fall out from under your feet and be in a situation, in a predicament, you know, like the folks who have testified today, any one of us at any time. And so we really do want to see a sense of urgency, and I think that that's something that we're looking to you to be able to act accordingly.
I will bring that back to the administration, and also what I heard today, we certainly would not support anyone saying such things about any of the council
Thank
people.
you.
And
Thank you.
I don't know where that came from, but I certainly will bring that back to the administration. I'm glad that you shared that with me. I was not aware of that. And I certainly will bring back to the administration the need to put eyes on this and to see what we can do to see how we improve these services.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilmember Bass. Any additional questions or comments for this panel? Okay, seeing none, we thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
And we look forward to continuing to work together. And I just want to personally thank you for the work that we have done in the past on the legislation we worked on last term. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, we will now proceed with Bill number 240061 and resolution numbers, number 240068. If the clerk could please call the first panel. Oh, and prior to calling the first panel, I'd like to recognize our colleague, Councilmember Gaudier, who's the sponsor of this bill and resolution for remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Many thanks to Madam Chair and the Law and Government Committee for hearing Bill number 240061 and Resolution number 240068, which proposes a charter change so that the amount of money the city receives from density bonus payments in lieu of providing affordable housing are added on top of the annual mandatory appropriation into the city's Housing Trust Fund. The code already states that we do this, but the shameful truth is that in practice, we do not. This leads to a situation that I'm sure many of my district colleagues have found themselves in as well. A spike of by right multifamily or commercial development happens in one of our neighborhoods, but the size of the buildings are greater than what neighbors thought was allowed by zoning. It turns out that developers are choosing to gain additional density on their projects through zoning bonuses offered in the code. One of these bonuses allows for denser by right development if you make a payment to the city, which the zoning code says is to be used for housing trust fund purposes. However, not once since this payment in lieu option began has these density bonuses led to a proportionate increase in the housing trust fund. This contributes to affordable housing citywide being underfunded to the tune of $36 million in the last 4 years and leads to distrust in the zoning process from community members because they're getting overscaled development in their neighborhood, but none of the affordable housing benefits promised by the city and the developer. We cannot turn a blind eye to this injustice any longer. This charter change is a way to fix it. It is not overly financially or administratively burdensome and would not affect this year's budget discussions. Let's talk instead about the impact this would have on our worsening housing crisis. Density bonus payments generated about $36 million between 2019 and 2022, and budget hearing documents said they generated an additional $7.3 million in 2023. That isn't a lot in the grand scheme of all the affordable housing dollars we receive from the federal government, but it's enough to fund multiple additional projects every year, or maybe start a new RFP when the city identifies a new need. And in a time when it will literally take us over 200 years to fill our affordable housing gap if we keep moving at our current pace, we need all the help we can get. This charter change would ensure that we as a city are making good on a commitment that the code already says that we make. For this reason, I think it is common sense, it is a common sense, good government step for this body, and ask that this committee report out favorably today. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilmember Gautier, for your work. The chair now recognizes panel one. If the clerk could please call the roll and they could come state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Garrett O'Dwyer, Joyce Smith, and Thomas Earl. Yeah. Joyce Smith.
Joyce?
Okay, if you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Sure thing. My name is Garrett O'Dwyer, and good morning, Chairperson Gilmore Richardson and members of City Council's Committee on Law and Government. I'm the Associate Policy Director at the Philadelphia Association of CDCs, or PACDC, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today on Bill number 240061 and Resolution number 240068, which seek to guarantee the payments in lieu of providing affordable housing for any purpose under the zoning code are deposited into the Philadelphia Housing Trust Fund for use in supporting a wide range of affordable housing goals. Since 1992, PACDC has been the voice of nonprofit community developers in Philadelphia and a leading advocate for affordable housing. Our organization played a central role in pushing for the creation of the Housing Trust Fund, or the HTF as we call it, back in 2005, and has subsequently worked to steadily expand the resources available to it. The HTF is critical to meeting Philadelphia's affordable housing needs because the resources are flexible, can be used to meet a variety of challenges, and are available to pilot new, impactful housing programs. These investments have benefited every neighborhood in the city and have contributed to the stability and growth of neighborhoods, as well as ensuring residents have new affordable homes, can stay in the homes they have, and have the opportunity to exit homelessness. Given the steady increase in rents and property values, these key programs are needed now more than ever. Bill number 240061 and resolution number 240068 continue efforts to increase the resources available to the HTF. While current law directs that in lieu of payments be used in a manner consistent with the HTF, and the city has implied that these proceeds are deposited directly into the HTF, it has not always been clear that this has been the case. These bills would allow Philadelphia voters to close this loophole and ensure that these revenues are indeed allocated as intended. However, more work remains to be done to ensure that these funds are used to meet our most pressing housing needs, those of our neighbors in deep poverty. The original legislation creating the HTF contained requirements for half of the spending to support low-income residents making below 30% of area median income. Later, a sub-fund was created that eliminated the requirements to support low-income households and other important requirements of the original fund, such as mandated expenditures on new affordable housing production. Moreover, it requires all new HTF resources, such as those under consideration today, to go into this sub-fund. While a range of housing needs should be addressed, a significant portion of our limited resources must be targeted towards those most in need. And I would include some of the brave folks that we heard from just earlier today as the folks where we should be directing our limited resources. And therefore, City Council should fix this mistake and mandate that these and other recent resources be directed toward the original HTF fund. Again, we're excited to support Bill number 240061 and resolution number 240068, and thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. If you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Please pull the mic up, okay?
Thank you. Good morning, committee chair and committee members. My name is Thomas Earl, and I am the executive director of Liberty Resources, the federally and state-funded Center for Independent Living for Philadelphia. Liberty Resources' mission is to assist and advocate with people with disabilities to achieve their full integration in all aspects of the community. A vitally important part of our work involves the availability of safe, affordable, and accessible housing. I'm here today to provide LRI's strong support for the passage of Bill 240061. LRI is a proud member of the Philadelphia Coalition for Affordable Communities, which is a diverse coalition of more than 70 member groups, including disability, community, faith, labor, and urban agricultural organizations that have joined together to advocate and pass laws that address the city's housing and food affordability crises. For LRI, housing, justice, affordability, and accessibility is of paramount importance. One of our core independent living services is nursing home transition work, where we assist people with disabilities to move out of expensive, unnecessary, segregated nursing home settings to cost-saving integrated housing in the community where they can live independently. The vast majority of consumers that we serve are low-income people with disabilities who are medical assistance eligible for Medicaid-funded long-term care services. It is important for City Council to know that 31% of the households in our city include a member with a disability. People with a disability live in every councilmatic district. 35% of Philadelphians with a disability unfortunately live below the poverty line. Many of them are trapped in nursing homes because there are not enough accessible homes that they can afford to live in the community. LRI, Disabled in Action, Philly Adapt, and the Coalition for Affordable Communities support Bill 240061 because it would ensure that much needed funds coming from the in lieu payments through the Mixed Income Housing Density Bonus go into the original Housing Trust Fund. that we created with Councilwoman Janie Blackwell and Blondell Reynolds Brown many years ago, over 18 years ago. These funds need to go into the original Housing Trust Fund so that there's a guarantee that at least half of the resources serve Philadelphians who need them the most, those who earn 30% or less of Philadelphia area median income. We know that income has not kept pace with housing costs, and housing expenses are out of reach for so many Philadelphians, especially those with a disability. We heard compelling, very compelling testimony earlier today about the homeless problem in Philadelphia and the inability of OHS to meet the dire need for affordable, accessible housing in Philadelphia. Since 2000, the citywide median home values have risen 107%, while median income rose by only 9%. 1 out of 3 homeowners in Philadelphia and half of all renters in Philadelphia are paying more than they can afford for housing. They are housing cost burden. Our coalition has spearheaded and been part of winning campaigns that have created new sources of funds for affordable housing. Yet too little of those funds are being allocated to provide homes for low-income Philadelphians who need them the most. We do not need to help people who are earning over 50% or 100% of area median income. We need to address the housing needs and crisis of people who are the most vulnerable and earning under 30%. And too many of them are people with disabilities earning less than $28,000 a year. Since Philadelphia hasn't put more resources where they are most needed, communities are being broken apart. In North, West, and South Philadelphia, displacement due to rising housing costs has pushed 32% of Black residents out of their neighborhoods. We are burdening taxpayers. Families are losing their homes. Too many are being forced to share housing or move into shelters. And we've heard the horror stories of shelters earlier today. When living in substandard or overcrowded housing, children can be taken from their families and placed into foster care. It costs over $45,000 per year to house and care for a child in the foster care system. Without adequate and accessible housing, many seniors and people with disabilities end up in nursing home facilities. That costs more than $70,000 per year per person. There are currently 129 people with disabilities that Liberty Resources has on a nursing home transition wait list, ready to move out into the community to live independently, except there's no available, accessible, affordable housing units available for them. Additionally, the caregivers, direct care workers, who help people with disabilities live in the community independently are themselves struggling to earn a living wage and meet their housing costs burdens. Our coalition wants our elected officials to keep their promises and pass bills 240061 and other legislation that prioritizes the allocation of scarce housing resources to the people who need them most. We'd love to see more money in the system, but let's at least prioritize the money that we have in the system to reach the people who need it the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony and for your continued advocacy and bringing up the work of former Councilmember Blondell Reynolds Brown on the Housing Trust Fund. more than 18 years ago, and believe it or not, I was here. And so, thank you, Tom
It makes us
Burrell.
feel old.
Right. Thank you so much for your advocacy. But I wanted to take an opportunity to recognize the presence of our Majority Whip Councilmember Isaiah Thomas, who's also the chair of City Council's Committee on Education. He has entered chambers with students from, I believe, Frankfurt High School, which is his alma mater. So we want to thank you all so much for coming down to be a part of this hearing today and seeing your government in action. This is the Committee on Law and Government. And today we are hearing 3 bills and 2 resolutions. One regarding Streets Department bill around advertising requirements for how we publish notice of council and administration work. One regarding the creation of a homeless ombudsman person to help with some quality control issues we're having with our Office of Homeless Services. And our last bill and resolution is around mandatory annual appropriation change to our Housing Trust Fund, which simply means how much money we're going to put into a dedicated fund around housing in the city of Philadelphia. And so we thank our young people from Frankfurt High School for being here. We thank you, Chairman Thomas, for bringing them by, and we certainly hope you enjoy your day in Philadelphia City Council and visiting Philadelphia City Hall. Thank you for being here. Okay, if you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. I'm sorry, Councilmember Phillips, did you want to be recognized?
You did exactly what I
Oh, okay. Thank you, Councilmember Phillips. If you could state your name and please proceed with your testimony.
Yes, hello. My name is Joyce Smith, and I want to thank you, Chairwoman and Council Committee members, for this opportunity to support Councilwoman Gauthier's Bill number 240061 and the resolution. I serve on the board of Centennial Parkside CDC, a community organization in the East Parkside section of West Philadelphia. I've also worked for many years at Philadelphia Legal Assistance, representing countless homeowners facing mortgage and tax foreclosure. In 2008, the nation's foreclosure crisis gave rise to new challenges for homeowners wrestling with predatory loans. And now, as a community advocate, a community housing advocate, I am witnessing more threats to housing security that beg for additional resources and supporting policies. And I'd like to share a little bit of on-the-ground experience that folds into existing research and data we know about the housing crisis in Philadelphia. To date, 57.5% of East Parkside residents live below the poverty line with a median annual household income of little over $15,000. We are seeing an uptick in RCO community developer meetings, while opportunities for homeownership in East Parkside is actually declining. Investors' resale and rental prices are totally out of line with our residents' median income. It seems it's counterintuitive that a low-income or working-class family can't afford to buy or rent a new development property in East Parkside. A house on the 4200 block of Viola Street recently sold for $300,000. A house on the another house on the 4000 block of Parkside Avenue sold for over $500,000. Individual buyers can't compete with investors' resources and their access to capital. Investors are also in a better position to buy homes requiring extensive renovations, and generally it's difficult for an individual buyer to get a mortgage for a house in disrepair, and there are plenty of those in East Parkside. So listening to the frustration, the fear, and even the aspirations of people in my community and other communities looking to be first-time home buyers are dreaming of owning a home for their families, it's extremely disheartening. East Parkside renters they outnumber the homeowners in our neighborhood now. And many long-term renters desire to stay in the neighborhood and are looking for safer and healthier rental units. but most, if not all, the new developments in our community are at prices way beyond the affordability range for these residents, with rents ranging from $1,500 to $2,000 and continuing to rise as we sit here. There are no benefits for residents who chose to stay in East Parkside through the neighborhood's difficult times. And finally, housing preservation is also a major issue. East Parkside is on the National Historic District, and a section of the neighborhood is also on the local historic registry. So residents are living in aging homes. We have witnessed over and over and over again homeowners forced to leave generationally owned property because of years of costly deferred maintenance. We are not against development, but we need tools to help carve out housing opportunities for this very vulnerable population that's just not in East Parkside, but is around the city of Philadelphia. So we really need forward thinking and solutions and policies to soften the imbalance of these housing inequities, and programs like Habitat for Humanity, Rebuilding Together, the Basic Systems Repair Program are doing a great job, but much, much more is needed. We need this bill to be passed. Thank you.
Very, very much for your testimony and for your work in East Parkside. And I heard Viola Street, that's still in the 52nd Ward. And so we're very familiar with that small street behind the Parkside buildings that have been redeveloped. And so we thank you for your advocacy and your work with Centennial Parkside CDC and for all the work that you all have been doing in the affordable housing space in Philadelphia. We appreciate you being here. Colleagues, are there any questions or comments? Councilwoman Gautier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to thank Garrett and Tom for being here today. Thank all of you for being here today in support and for your advocacy. You all are invaluable partners in the fight for more affordable, accessible housing. And I have a question for Joyce. And thank you, Joyce, for being here today. We know that RCOs are central as a main driver of public engagement in our zoning and development review process. So what does it do to our overall ability to keep people engaged and coming to their local zoning meetings if they know that these density buyouts are not actually being spent in the way that the zoning code says that they are?
So you're asking me how residents feel about that?
How do residents feel when they find out that what we're promising them in terms of these density buyouts is not real, that it's not really going to the Housing Trust Fund?
I attend about 99% of them. What I'm getting from residents is that the new developments, and as I said in my testimony, that they don't have a problem with the developments coming in. What they have a problem with is not being able to partake in those new developments. At RCO meetings is a great way for us to engage developers that are coming into our neighborhood, but the larger problem, and I hope this is what addresses what you just asked me, is that there is no affordable spaces for those new developments that, that they can actually move into or even buy, but we mainly have rental properties coming in now. I'm not sure if that answered your...
No, it answers it well. So it's disheartening for people to see these developments going up, but there's no place for them, and no resources for them.
Exactly, and that is one of the main questions they ask. The two things they ask: how much is it going to cost, and there's a possibility that one of the residents can move in. So yes, that is a problem.
Thanks so much for your testimony and for your work.
For sure.
Chair now recognizes Councilmember Landau.
Thank you all so much for being here. I just want to kind of reiterate what you've been saying is that developers will do what developers are going to do, and they are making new housing, and some of it is somewhat affordable on a scale. But if the city of Philadelphia doesn't focus on making sure that we have affordable, accessible housing for the lowest income Philadelphians, We will not be able to house them. This is not something that's going to be handled by the private market. This isn't something where, you know, an angel's dropping out of the sky and just putting up affordable, accessible housing. We must intentionally make it happen with city funds on a city basis, and everyone else will be taken care of. We know that's going to happen because we're watching it happen. So thank you all for the work that you're doing. We appreciate you so much, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We will now proceed with panel 2.
Pam Andrews and Deb McCarty.
Okay, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record, and then you can proceed with your testimony. Thank you both so much for being here. Now, I have to say, this is a blast from the past. And I couldn't help but think you were here for another department, but we appreciate you being here. State your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Deborah McCarty, and I'm here to testify on behalf of the Powelton Village Civic Association Zoning Committee regarding Bill number 240061 and Resolution number 240068. Our position is that the intention of the initial density bonus legislation was good. Unfortunately, it has not panned out as many of us would have hoped. We have seen several developers pay into the Housing Trust Fund, and yet we have not seen affordable housing units built to offset these projects. While the density bonus offered for developers who include price-restricted affordable housing in their development would seem an expeditious and preferred, from our standpoint, method to obtain much-needed affordable housing, it is not the approach most developers take. Experience shows that developers gravitate toward making payments to the Housing Trust Fund in lieu of including affordable units in their development. Communities therefore get development which is larger than what base zoning allows, but without the benefit of affordable units. That impact can be substantial, especially because that additional density is by right, giving RCO groups no ability to negotiate with the developer about the design, massing, setbacks, or materials used in the project, so it best fits the neighborhood context. We all know that this city is in desperate need of more affordable housing units. If the payment in lieu option is to continue, there needs to be a mechanism to ensure that those funds go toward building affordable units. Ideally, excuse me, it would create affordable units in the neighborhood where the new development occurs. It is for these reasons that we support Bill number 240061, Resolution 240068, and urge City Council to do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for your testimony and for being here. If you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Good afternoon. I think we've made it to lunch. My name is Pamela Andrews, and I am the chair of West Powelton Saunders Park. And we are here today as a community that has endured the impact of intense development and the loss of friends and families priced out of their homes. We have witnessed a great increase of population density, particularly due to large apartment block developments and traffic congestion following population increase. When developers magnify the impact of their development through paying density bonuses, these payments can also reduce the amount of affordable housing in the area affected by the development. Payments in lieu instead of providing actual affordable housing. We believe that bonus density payments, including the in lieu funds, should be spent within communities seeing the most development and directed to affordable housing to ensure that working families have adequate access to housing. In an area like West Powelton that has desirability, due to its public transit access, service availability, and class diversity, which translates into a healthier and more robust community. And I'm here to support our Councilwoman's amendment, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you for being here, and thank you so much for your advocacy. Any questions or comments for this panel? Councilmember Gaudier?
I just want to thank them both for being here to testify today, but also for your work in the community. It's just invaluable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very, very much. We will now proceed to panel 3.
Ryan Spack.
Okay, if you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Spack. I am the principal partner, one of the founders at Spack Group. In 2010, I moved into Southwest Philadelphia into a neighborhood called King Sessing. I had a wonderful ability to buy a triplex, live on the top floor, rent out the other 2 units, get to know my neighbors. It became very, very apparent very quickly as the first white family, my wife and I, to move back onto that block in almost 50 years, that we were the definition of gentrifiers. And 18 months later, I had the ability to form my company, Spack Group, and start to invest in real estate in the neighborhood. And it was an amazing opportunity to be able to be proud to have my company based in West Philadelphia and simultaneously have the ability to invest where I laid my head at night. It also became very apparent that we were part of what was beginning to become a very apparent problem, that as we were renovating vacant properties and creating more housing, to do so required us to have rents that were slightly higher at that time than what the neighbors were used to in King Sessing. As we expanded our investments into Cedar Park, it became even more apparent that we were part of the problem. And so very quickly, our company changed its strategies as we bought our first building around Malcolm X Park on South 52nd Street. So it became very apparent to us that if our company was too small to go after affordable housing tax credits, that could possibly be able to do other things with our money. And so long before the inclusionary housing bonus and law was put into effect, Spack Group began to build inclusionary housing. We began looking at properties where we could partner with the community to obtain zoning variances for density bonuses so that we could self-subsidize rents in apartments utilizing what was intelligent land purchases, financing that was available to us that was cheaper than it is today, and simultaneously working with the community to find rents that made sense. Today, 25.2% of our entire portfolio is deed-restricted affordable housing units at 60% or less. More than 45 of those units are at 50% or less, and one of those units is at 40%. Those are deed-restricted. Not a single one has ever received public subsidy. Not housing trust fund money, not dollars from PHFA. We are very, very proud to be a part of that. What was interesting is of the 5 inclusionary developments that we have built, 4 of which are in West Philadelphia, 1 is in Strawberry Mansion. Of all of the units that we have built, only 2 of the 5 buildings have ever taken advantage of the inclusionary housing bonus. What's interesting about those scenarios is that very, very quickly, we did not want to pay into the system. And mostly because we did not feel the in-lieu payments were actually going to help our neighbors. And as a neighbor, that was incredibly critical to us as a company. And so today, we continue that mission. Regrettably, there are other reasons that we are not doing so in Philadelphia, but we continue that mission in other cities like Reading and Wilmington. And I implore this council and this committee to continue to draft legislation that incentivizes the action you want taken by developers. I am happy to push for those incentives. I think that those type of incentives create the action that you want, and I hope that we can all work together to make that happen, to build more affordable and accessible units at every economic level. So I thank you very much for my opportunity to testify before you.
Thank you. Thank you very
very
much for your work in West and Southwest Philadelphia. I have a question.
Sure.
You have the place right there in the corner, 51st in Baltimore, across
That is us.
from, I see the signs.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you for your work.
My pleasure.
Councilmember Gaudier.
I just wanted to thank you for your testimony and for your work. I think other developers should be like you, frankly.
Thank you.
And also thank you for being a good partner. There have been many times where, unfortunately, people who've experienced gun violence have been looking to be relocated, and we've had difficulty, but Ryan always picks up the phone and has helped several times in those scenarios. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
It's my honor. It really is. I appreciate you all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm very familiar with your place. You're right across from Booker's.
That is correct. That building is the first inclusionary housing development where we put the affordable units inside that property. So there were 12 apartments. 3 of them are deed restricted as affordable units. The 40% AMI apartment that I had mentioned in my testimony is in that building. It is the first floor, 1-bedroom, handicap accessible unit.
Nice.
And so it is currently rented for $895 a month.
Wow.
Yeah, and
I see it.
So every time you walk past that building and you go to Booker's for dinner,
Yes.
you'll know you're looking at inclusionary housing.
Oh, I
So,
love it. Well, thank you so much
It's
for
my
your
pleasure.
great work in the
Thank you.
community. We appreciate your service. Okay, we'll now proceed with panel 4.
Rob Dubow.
Okay, and you can state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Okay, thank you so much for
Sure.
your patience.
Sure thing.
During this busy time of year. It's not like anything else is going on, right, Rob?
Nothing else.
Just a few things. But please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thanks. Good afternoon, Chair Gilmore Richardson and members of the Law and Government Committee. I'm Rob Dubow, the Director of Finance. I'm here to testify on Bill 240061 and Resolution 240068. The bill and resolution would provide for submission to the voters of the city an amendment to the Home Rule Charter. The amendment would increase the minimum amount that must be appropriated for spending on housing trust fund purposes in the city's operating budget. Specifically, it would require that an amount equal to total receipts by the city in the preceding calendar year of payments made in lieu of providing affordable housing for any purpose under the zoning code be appropriated to the Housing Trust Fund. The amount would be in addition to the current requirement for a mandatory annual appropriation for the fund in the amount of at least 1.5% of the city's total general fund appropriations, and that was required under another charter change enacted in 2021. The administration opposes this and any similar charter amendments that attempt to bind the hands of future mayors and city councils by requiring specific budgetary appropriations as opposed to proceeding through the annual budget process. We agree that housing funding is essential, but so are other portions of the budget like education funding. We project that this charter change would cost the city's general fund around $5 million annually, up to $25 million over a 5-year plan period. An amount that would be added to our already high level of fixed costs, further limiting our budgetary flexibility. In FY24, more than 57% of the general fund is dedicated to fixed or inflexible costs, such as pension payments and debt service, leaving less than half for the mayor and city council to allocate each year to respond to the evolving needs of the city and its residents. This proposed change would take away even more flexibility from the budget process. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, and I want to thank you for your testimony and for your work with us through the years, and certainly recognize my colleague, Councilmember Gaudier, but I wanted to just state for the record, and help me out here. When this legislation was originally passed, this money was supposed to go to the Housing Trust Fund, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so what has happened is that a legislation was passed in this body for revenue that was supposed to go to a dedicated Housing Trust Fund. Those dollars never went to the Housing Trust Fund. They went directly to the general fund. And so for me, I look at this as a correction to ensure that the original intent of the original legislation is actually occurring. And so am I wrong there, or am I missing something?
No, I mean, you're correct. There are substantial amounts that go from the general fund to the Housing Trust Fund. Over the last 5 years, it's been about $130 million that's gone over. In addition to the recording fees, that's another $90 million. So between those two, it's over $220 million that's gone to the Housing Trust Fund.
Right, and so this would be up to $5 million annually and potentially up to $25 million over the life of the 5-year plan.
Right, on top of the numbers that I just walked through.
On top of those numbers, but the dollars that we're referring to, they're supposed to, and always were supposed to go to the Housing Trust Fund.
Yeah, and I'd say there are substantial amounts of money that go over from the
Right,
general
because
fund.
of the other legislation that's been done recently, as like Councilmember Green's bill. Okay, all right, thank you very, very much. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Gaudier.
Good
Hello.
afternoon.
Hi.
Why is the administration opposed to having the code work the way that it's intended to?
We are opposed to any charter change that limits the flexibility of the way money is spent, because that makes all of our jobs harder as we go into a budget process.
Do you think that the city code is an important set of regulations to follow?
Yes.
Okay. Are you also committing today to come, would you be the representative to come to our zoning meetings when these projects are discussed to tell people that these funds don't go to the Housing Trust Fund? Or would that be someone else?
Probably planning and development that would be
Okay.
doing that.
Are they committing to do that?
I can go back and ask them.
Okay. Thank you.
And for the record, if we could just get something in writing that could be provided to me for dissemination to the committee regarding Councilmember Gaudier's last question, that would be helpful.
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you. Chair now recognizes Councilmember Bass.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, to be on the record, that while I understand the need for flexibility, because, you know, like, we need to be able to move things around to ensure that we're able to do a good job for the citizens of Philadelphia, and in particular, our most vulnerable. However, I would say that based on the overwhelming need for low-income housing, the city of Philadelphia has really failed miserably when it comes to ensuring that this housing gets done and gets built. So I would ask that you all rethink that positioning based on where we are right now, that we are, you know, the idea that you have in mind is to continue to do more of what we've done, which we know is not working. And so I would think that on those grounds alone, that there should be some rethinking of the policy of the administration about how do we solve this problem. Based on the way that we're going right now, it will never be solved. And I don't know that it can ever 100% be solved, but we can certainly do better than we're doing right now. So I would ask that the administration give serious thought and consideration of supporting this bill, because we have to do something different. We just cannot continue the way we have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilmember Bass and Councilmember Gaudier. I wanted to pause and recognize the presence of Councilmember Harity, who was here in chambers. Thank you very much for being here. Any additional questions or comments? Councilmember Landau?
Just one comment. I just want to be clear that what we were talking about today isn't asking how much money the administration puts into the Housing Trust Fund in a variety of ways. It is getting this particular funding stream that was mandated to go into the Housing Trust Fund to go into the Housing Trust Fund. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or concerns from members of the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you very, very much, Rob, for your testimony and for your work that we will continue to do together. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree, and that's okay.
Understood.
That makes for a stronger diversity of thought, but we certainly appreciate the work that you do and the continued work we'll do together.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to mention this for the record, and I thought of this. Relative to ensuring that the intent of legislation that council passes is actually manifesting itself when it gets to the other side of government. And so I think that's important because we all have to work hand in hand to make this work. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We will now recognize our witnesses who are here to give public comment. If the clerk could please call the witnesses for public comment.
Elizabeth Waring, Judy Kaplan, Michael Briscoe, and Miriam Marks.
Okay, if you all could approach the witness stand, if you could state your names for the record and proceed with your testimony. If you have written testimony that you can submit, that would be helpful. And if you could summarize your testimony, that would be great.
I'm just going to pull up my notes.
Okay, and if you could just pull the mic up so that we could hear you, state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yes, thank you so much for hearing our public comment. My name is Judith Kaplan. I go by Judy. I am here to express my support for Bill 240061 and Resolution 240068. And I just want to echo things that I've heard in the conversation so far. This seems like a very common sense move and a corrective, and that's my perspective. I'm speaking as a co-block captain in West Powelton, and I can offer a little bit of anecdotal evidence and personal experience just to underscore some of the things that have been said so far today. So I was attracted to the block where I live 6 years ago by the fact that there were so many long-term renters who have been there for decades. It was a very stable community. I was really excited to become a part of that community. Since moving on to the block, we've lost 3 families who've been priced out. And at this moment in time, there are 2 other households who are on the verge of having to leave. One of my neighbors, a new mom, is, for instance, she's not able to secure home internet, which limits her, what she can do in terms of work obligations, because she has to reallocate some of that money for what is basic utility in order to meet rent month to month. Another family is a long-term homeowning family, intergenerational house. They are in desperate need of some home repairs that will preserve the property. They cannot undertake those repairs because of property tax increases. A third family household is really excited about being on the block, being part of the community, and they want to purchase a home in the community, and that's increasingly out of reach for them. And so, what do you see in place of these families? Increasingly, because of our proximity to the universities there in West Powelton, big corporate landlords are letting the properties go to students who can pay more every month. And this, I've observed, really sort of destabilizes our community. The student population is a transient, even seasonal population. It brings all kinds of burdens to the neighborhood in terms of trash. This is a very real concern for us, especially as they move in and move out on a yearly basis and strangely seem to eat a lot of takeout. It's pretty extreme. And the other issue there is that as students vacate their properties for semester breaks and holidays, there are a lot of vacant properties, and that further destabilizes things. The last thing I would observe about that is that the businesses that are then attracted to the community to serve this new population are increasingly, selling goods at a much higher rate. So it's an additional burden for the community and the long-term sort of sustainability of what we've got going on. It's an amazing place to live. I love my neighborhood. I love my block. I'm sending my son to kindergarten in the fall, just a few blocks away. And, my dream for him is that he'll feel rooted in the place where we live, that he will, have friends in the neighborhood, that he can, are part of stable families, and that they'll be able to spend time together and grow up together, and that he will be able to benefit from the wisdom of some of, our more senior neighbors, and that they'll be able to stay in their homes, stay in the community, and just make a better world. So thanks so much.
Thank you very, very much for your testimony and for your work as a co-block captain on your block. We certainly appreciate you being here. If you could please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yes, Michael Briscoe.
Okay, please proceed.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Michael Briscoe, and I have lived in the West Powelton for over 45 years. As my fellow community members have mentioned, we have endured the impact of intense development over the past years, in addition to the nuisance Airbnb done to our community, because of the close proximity to the University of Pennsylvania University and Drexel. In addition, my taxes have increased in 10 years from $823 to $3,996, with no increase in municipal services. With the community shifting away from affordable housing, businesses are increasing their prices, creating further hardships for the residents of the neighborhood. I support Councilwoman's amendment that would ensure density payments generated from developments in our community and support for affordable housing for seniors and working families in West Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony, and I'm sure you've been in touch with your district council member as she continues to work through some of the challenges that you are facing in families just like you all throughout the district. Councilmember Gaudier.
Thank you so much, and I definitely empathize with what you're going through from a property tax perspective, and we're fighting around that too. So thank you so much.
Good afternoon, council members. I thought we would be out by late morning, but we're not going to be here till 4 o'clock today, right? Okay, remember that.
No, ma'am. If you could state your name for the record.
My name is Elizabeth Waring, and I'm a resident and homeowner in West Powelton, also a board member of the West Powelton Saunders Park RCO, manager of the Holly Street Neighbors Community Garden, block captain, and what else? Oh, member of the Neighborhood Garden board member of the Neighborhood Garden Trust. Okay, so I'm a longtime resident, 44 plus years in the West Powelton area, have seen a lot of changes, raised my 3 children there and some grandchildren I have now. They don't live there, but I love my house, like to keep it. Seen so many changes, being very annoyed by phone calls, slow mail, text, emails from developers to buy my home. So my voicemail says the property is not for sale. First thing it says. There are so many incongruent, hideous-looking buildings that just do not fit in with anything that's really making our neighborhood look bad. So something needs to be done with the over-density, because they're stacking people. And I'm looking at these boxcar-looking buildings. They're just horrible. And then there's competition for parking and just so much of what my other neighbors have said. So I'm fortunate to have bought my house when I did, because now I would not be able to afford anything in the neighborhood. So I definitely support the bill and looking forward to some change for the better. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much for all your service in the community, and thank you for being here. If you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Pull the mic closer. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Miriam Marks Peterson, and I'm a 25-year-old transplant to Philadelphia who moved here from New York in January of last year with my partner of 7 years. We are two young professionals who both chose to come to West Powelton because it was recommended so highly by friends of ours who love it for its beautiful houses, its vibrant community, and its residents who care genuinely about their homes and their neighbors. We love our home. We currently pay $1,500 a month for our apartment, within the average range of $1,500 to $1,600 for single-bedroom homes in our neighborhood. As young working people, we're excited to build a future here, and we look forward to one day saving up and becoming homeowners. Homeownership is something that many people my age, of many demographics, dream about, but for so many of us, it feels unattainable, especially when we're working so hard just to afford rent that there's nothing left over for our savings. And with so few affordable housing options, how can I realistically expect to stay in the neighborhood that I love? This bill matters because retaining these density bonus dollars in our community, where the effects of development are felt directly by our community, is vital because it'll mean that people who love our home can afford to stay here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony and for being here. Chair now recognizes Councilmember Gautier. Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you for being here to testify, but also for all of your leadership in the community. And it's really touching to see longtime leaders as well as new leaders and new residents in our community coming together around the same goal of equity and making sure that the people who have been in our neighborhoods and people that are coming to our neighborhoods can afford to live there. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone here left to testify on any of the bills or resolutions that were heard in today's Committee on Law and Government? Okay, seeing none, this now concludes the public hearing on resolution numbers 240030 and 240068, and bill numbers 240004, 240005, and 240061. We will now go into the public meeting to consider the action to be taken on these bills and resolutions. Will the clerk please call the roll to take attendance, and members that are in attendance will please indicate by stating present when your name is called.
Councilmember Bass.
Present.
Councilmember Phillips.
Present.
Councilmember Landau. Chair Gilmore Richardson.
I am present. Thank you. A quorum of the committee is now present. For the record, today, bill number 240004 will be held. Again, bill number 240004 will be held. And so now the chair will like to recognize Councilmember Bass for a motion on the amendment to bill number 240005.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Offer an amendment to Bill Number 240005. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment to Bill Number 240005 be approved. Second.
Thank you. The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Landau seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 240005 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the amendment to bill number 240005 has been approved. And for the record, I am an aye. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Bass for a motion on bill number 240005 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 240005, as amended, be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second?
Second.
Okay. It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 240005, as amended, be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor will signify by stating aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. Bill number 240005, as amended, will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation with a request that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading at our next session of council. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Bass for a motion on the amendment to resolution number 240030.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I offer an amendment to resolution number 240030. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment to resolution 240030 be approved.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Landau seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to resolution number 240030 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by stating aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the amendment to resolution number 240030 has been approved. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Bass for a motion on resolution number 240030 as amended.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that resolution number 240030 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilmember Landau seconded the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that resolution number 240030 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor of the motion will signify by stating aye. 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 Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Resolution number 240030 as amended will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation at the next session of council. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Bass for a motion on the amendment to bill number 240061.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 240061. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment to bill number 240061 be approved.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Landau seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 240061 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by stating aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the amendment to bill number 240061 has been approved. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Bass for a motion on bill number 240061 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that bill number 240061 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Landau seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 240061 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by stating aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Bill number 240061 as amended will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation with a request that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading at the next session of council. The chair recognizes Councilmember Bass for a motion on the amendment to resolution number 240068.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I offer an amendment to resolution number 240068. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment to resolution number 240068 be approved.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Landau seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Resolution Number 240068 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by stating aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the amendment to Resolution Number 240068 has been approved. The chair recognizes Councilmember Bass for a motion on Resolution Number 240068 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Resolution Number 240068 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Landau seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that Resolution Number 240068 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor of the motion will signify by stating aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Resolution Number 240068 as amended will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation at the next session of council. There being no further questions from members of the committee and no other witnesses to testify, this concludes the business before the Committee on Law and Government today. Thank you all very much for your attendance. Thank you all so much, colleagues. Have a great day. Thank you.